So my first speaker is what I would pretty much call my lunch buddy. For quite a while now, at least once a month, we go out and have lunch together. It's his turn next, by the way. And you'd love it. We just chat shit about marketing, sales, all of that type of stuff in business. But Paul comes from a very illustrious background. He's going to talk today a little bit about marketing focus, something that we've often talked about in our sessions on many occasions. But unlike me, where I come from a military background, so my marketing prowess doesn't nearly have the same type of impact as Paul's does. Paul's been in marketing for 30 years in senior leadership roles with the likes of Coca-Cola, Nintendo, Gillette, the best a man can get. That's down to him. Well, I don't know if it actually is or not, but he'll tell you in a moment. Smirnoff. Who doesn't know Smirnoff in the room? Who doesn't like Smirnoff in the room? So I'm not going to babble on too much longer. I'm going to introduce, well, I have introduced Paul. Paul, if you mind coming up and enlighten us over the next 30 minutes or so. So we'll have about 30 minutes, then there'll be an opportunity for Q&As. So grab the questions as you go and anything that we discuss on the way through.
Thank you very much.
Over to you, buddy.
It's a nice intro, wasn't it? I have to live up to that. Yeah, thank you. Let me just switch.
We'll come back to that.
Okay, clarity and action. I've got 30 minutes with you, so I'm not going to necessarily run through your marketing plans with you individually or any particular discipline. But of course, if you want to ask any questions or you have any things afterwards, of course, that'd be nice to get into. But we're going to stick very much on top line, strategic fundamentals. So, and I don't mean to make this, I thought about this quite hard and long about not trying to be condescending. And that is not the purpose of this. This is just a way of actually just being able to reset and think about all the fundamental stages that are important to get you from where you are to where you want to be. That I've seen over 30 years of trial and error and seeing, you know, the good and the bad of all of those things. So this is not about me teaching and preaching. This is about trying to get you, and I think this is as a precursor to what Steve is going to take you through later, just about thinking about your business and how this affects what you want to do in these crazy times that we've got. So I think there's 11 slides. So it won't be death by PowerPoint. And each one, or the majority of them, have a question at the end to ask yourselves about the topic that we're bringing up. I wonder if that's going to happen all the way through the presentation. So growth is a leadership issue, not just a marketing one. So that's quite an important factor. I've worked with lots of different businesses over the years, and the ones that do really, really well have embedded marketing into their organisation. It's not a kind of separate silo. It's not a different, you know, the principle, the definition of marketing is responsible for finding and satisfying customers profitably. That's built into the definition of what marketing is. So that's a business need. It's all about customers. It's always been about customers. And the organisations that I've seen that do the best have that kind of constant gelling of marketing within the boardroom, within the senior management team. It's like an ongoing, it's like the electricity comes on every day, marketing happens every day. It's not this kind of separate, you know, vehicle or beast that sits there. I just want to talk about businesses stall. So every business that I've ever seen, even the best ones, so you can always say the reasons business stall is because they lost touch somehow. Somehow they just missed what the customer wanted or what was going on in the marketplace or certain trends. But ultimately, it's really hard to be 100% on it all the way, all the time. And what I've seen over the years is, of course, as businesses grow, they grow from a marketplace into another marketplace. So not only have you maybe gone through 2, 3, 4 years, so the world has changed, but your competitors are now different. Your customers are more demanding. The things that you used to run that business on shift. So you've constantly got to keep revisiting and looking and checking where you are. Hence the fact about marketing being embedded. And so the first point I really wanted to make and just to hold in there was about how do you think, and where is your business in terms of marketing and leadership? Do they support each other? Do they work together? Is it a close-knit team? And how aligned are you? Because fundamentally, every single business I've ever seen that does this well, the MD likes marketing. And the ones where they're not so keen, some organisations don't get marketing, don't like marketing, don't understand marketing. And I understand that, but as a fundamental principle, finding and satisfying customers is a really important part of what you need to do. So the first few slides now are a little bit about basic strategy, and this is that bit about trying my hardest not to be condescending about, you know this, you're all running businesses, you all know what's going on. But this is the bit that, I don't know if you've ever read any Jim Collins, but he talks about the brutal facts. But really, really understanding where you are now is so fundamental to where you're about to go. And you've deeply, deeply got to get into everything about your business. And the more you understand your business, and I'm not saying you're going to get to 100%, but you certainly need to know 80% of where you are. It's absolutely fundamental, and I see far too many people and too many businesses doing things on assumptions or opinions or beliefs. And the funny thing is you don't really get buy-in. The reason why people meet in the boardroom over and over and over again and start talking about the same things over and over again, because the facts aren't there to say that is absolutely 100% right or that's 100% wrong. And so you need to have those facts to be able to start giving that clarity. That next bit about externally and internally, of course you need to do the external. We know, what your competitors are doing is really important. Nobody wants to be in a boardroom always saying, oh, what are my competitors doing? What are my competitors doing? But they are the ones that are going to ruin your plans. They're the ones that are also going after your customers. And if you don't know what their offerings are and what their pricing is and what they're good at, and if they're bigger than you and if they've got a different distribution than you, that's going to make a really big difference about the decisions you're going to make. But on the flip side, you also have your own culture and your own business and your own capabilities. And so you really need to know brutally, factually what your business is good at, what it's not so good at, what it has the potential to become, what it has the potential not to become. Really, really fundamental stuff that actually, the more you understand it, the more crystal clear everything will become for you going forward. Very hard to do it without it. And so I suppose the next question then is, you probably know the gaps that you have already. There'll be a gut feel in terms of what do you really need to know and what do you not know and what do you need to fill. And that's externally and internally. So, ambition. That's so often when I talk to clients, it's about a round number. We want to get to 20 million. We want to get to whatever this figure is, whatever that figure is. Absolutely critical that the whole business knows where you want to go and that you all really, really believe in it. That it is it's something that is motivating, that actually is achievable, that kind of smart objective thing. But actually, I've seen organisations that sort of just come in the day and not everybody knows where they're going other than just getting on with the day job. If everybody knows exactly where they're going, it kind of helps the whole interpretation piece about what everybody has to do in their job. If you knew that, you know, you had to double in size, that fundamentally changes for just about everybody in the business what they've got to do. You know, whether you're in HR, whether you're in IT, whether you're in marketing, if you're going to double in size, you kind of know what you're about to do. If you're going to move into a new territory, all of a sudden the decision making gets so much clearer. You know, you say you're going to move to, I don't know, you're going to take over the southeast, and somebody says there's this great offer in Falmouth. I'm not interested, because I know as a business where we're going, and I don't need those distractions. And the other bit, and you all heard this as well, is about that what not to do anymore. So, and this is, business gets messy, you know, and I keep seeing it over and over and over again. All of my clients are super smart. They're bright people. They know what's going on. They're intelligent, canny people. But life and business gets busy. And this clarity of knowing where you are and where you want to go, although that sounds so basic, is so fundamental. And not least of all, it stops you doing a whole load of things you don't need to do anymore. It's absolutely, you just look at it, you just know where you're going, you go, that doesn't fit, that's not right. So when people say to me, is this a good idea? It's like, based on what? Where are you now? Where do you want to go? Now I can judge whether that's a good thing to do. Should we go into Europe? Should we diversify? Should we do this? Should we do that? It completely depends on where we're going and where we are. So this bit is actually quite nice, I think, depending on the size of your organisation, is, well, there was that joke, isn't there, about the NASA had a picture of the moon on the wall, and it had the word mission written on it. And that was like everybody in the organisation knew where they were going and what they were doing. So the fable, I think, whether it's true or not, was about, you know, even people sweeping the floor knew where they were going as an organisation. And this is sometimes about, does everybody know where you're going? You know, enough to articulate it and enough to be able to make sort of interpreted decisions about what's right. Disney's was about make the customer smile. Fundamentally, ultimately, that was, you know, part of where they wanted to take the business. So if I was cleaning up or doing catering or whatever it was, I could kind of think that would make the customer smile. I don't know, I put a banana and a smiley face and 2 oranges. That would be my way of maybe making the customer smile. So everybody in the organisation could know that. So there are a few fundamental slides in here that I just thought I have to put in because they're important. And there are a few in here that I think are not quite secrets, but they are, you will be able to outmaneuver your competitors if you start doing them better. We're not quite there yet, but this is going on that path. When you know where you are and where you've got to go, you can start looking at exactly where that business is going to come from. So if I go back to that kind of, we're at 5 million, I want to get to 15 million, I've got to add 10 million. That could be 10 million £1 customers. It could be one 10 million pound customer. And you can go through your existing customer bank for the last 3 years and tier them by revenue. And you will soon work out what percentage of your business comes from what type of business, you know, what type of customer. How many more of those customers will I need to get to 10 million? Sometimes you look at it and you go, actually, it's never going to happen. I'm never going to get to that number with that type of customer. Because by the time I've got there, I need another office, I need another 400 staff, I need another this. I might spend 10 years trying to get there and make no more money than I'm making right now. So deciding where it will come from, absolutely critical and so illuminating. It's just one of those projects where everybody in the business will just look at it and say, that makes absolute sense. We cannot get there with that type of customer. Even though we love them and they're wonderful, we cannot get that growth that we wanted with that type of customer. But we can get them with this type of customer. And that changes completely all of your targeting. So if the phone rings, you just pick up the phone and take it. And you say, fine, but if I'm going to go out knocking on doors, I'm going to purposely go out and knock on the right doors of the types of business that I know will take the business where I need it to go. The other thing is about avoiding drift. So I think it might be a human characteristic, a human trait where we like to go after shiny stuff. You know, any kind of new business opportunity that's out there, most companies I know go after it and find it very difficult to turn any work down or not do it. And I get, if times are tough, we take anything, and we always will. Absolutely get that. But I've got a client where we knew where our business was coming from. It was from they're in construction, tier 1, and 3 years ago we used to say that a 100 grand job was quite good. You know, just over 2 years now, and we're looking at jobs that are $1.5 million and thinking they're all right. And we had a conversation only last week about a 100 grand job and thinking that's not good anymore. But it took us 2+ years to stop going after 5 grand jobs and 3 grand jobs and 6 grand jobs, because they kept coming in and we kept, you know, they looked like money, but when you do the proper analysis, you actually don't make a lot of money on that kind of work as a construction company. And once we knew that, it took 2 years to stop some of the salespeople still going after those jobs and still trying to fill their bucket with that kind of work. But it makes it, and you also know where you can compete better and you know where your messaging works. So I won't waffle too much. So that's a really important question. You really, really need to know where the growth is coming from. Exactly where the growth is coming from. Sometimes you do this and you realise there isn't enough market there. You'll say, this is the type of customer we need in Exeter, and you'll do a market share analysis and go, oh, there aren't enough of those. So we're going to have to change our plan or diversify or do something different. Okay, so differentiation. This is a massive topic in itself, and I know it's something that I hope everybody struggles with and thinks about all the time. Yeah, ultimately, USPs, value propositions, that one compelling reason why somebody should buy from you and not somebody else. So important. And you can never ever be a business that doesn't have that. And if you don't have that, you need to forever worry about it and think about it in your sleep. You've got to, if you don't have a fundamental reason to be bought from, no one else is going to get it either. Have to have one. And it used to be easier. The world is now so competitive. It's really, really difficult, especially if you're in the service industry. At least if you've got a product, there's sometimes some product differentiation. If you're a bank, if you're an accountant, if you're a law firm, you could change the badges overnight. The products are very similar. Half the staff have worked in a previous competitor and now work in the new one. Really tricky, but it has to be done. And the point here is, if you're too similar, you start competing on price. And price is never a place you want to be in. There's probably globally one winner in price, which will be the person that can manufacture the most. And there's always some other monkey that will sell it cheaper than you will. And you go down the cost route. If it was all about price, there'd be one car, there'd be one supermarket, there'd be one hotel, there'd be one everything. It's never been about price. I think as humans, we think it's about price because our customers say to us, how much is that? It's one of their first questions. So psychologically, we go, oh, it's always about price. It's never about price. Who wants the cheapest of everything? Nobody wants the cheapest. Normally. There are some statistics about in every market, everybody wants the cheapest of something. Depends if you value it or not. But the second point here is we have to just be careful, because I see this quite a lot. I see it in a lot of SaaS kind of digital companies. I see it in a lot of technical companies where sometimes internally we think it's a really great feature, but actually find out the market couldn't care less. So I don't know, if you had a Ford Focus and let's say it does 120 miles an hour and you can make it go 130 miles an hour, that is not going to make any difference in annual sales, because 120 was fast enough already and nobody cares less about the other bit, and we were all worried about losing our licenses anyway. So you just have to check that that benefit, that differentiation is actually valuable to your customers. Now, the beauty of getting this right, and I'm not saying that you can 100% always be the best at everything, but you do need to be clear on why that customer needs to buy from you. And the messaging is also the same. If I've got one clear message, you know that joke about if I throw you one ball, you'll probably catch it. If I throw you 10 balls, you won't catch any of them. That's the same with having a USP, that unique thing. But the beauty of when you start getting it right is everything goes better. So there's less price chipping. There's, people don't negotiate anywhere near as much. The speed of sale reduces. The complexities reduce. Everything about getting it right. So if Vodafone were trying to sell you a mobile and Paul Stevenson's trying to sell you a mobile, one will get a much better price. They will sell it to you much faster, and everything else about it's much better. I'm going to have to take forever to try to convince you why you should get mine. So there are two sides to that. So the question there then is, are we genuinely different? And I hope that you take out of this 1 or 2 or 3 points that stick in your head that maybe help you with your business going forward. This is one of them. This is that one that you're driving in the car, you're listening to the radio, you go to bed constantly, and your market will evolve and you will evolve. And so that sometimes shifts. And the more you're on that, which makes absolute sense when you think about it, a compelling reason to buy my product. So this is a great one. This I genuinely think is, the amount of companies I meet that are trying to get a tiny marketing budget. So, fundamentally, we all know that the more you put into a pension pot, the more you get out at the other end. We've all been educated enough and wired enough to know that. That's no different in marketing. And why would it be any different in marketing? So all the big companies I've worked with, all the big global players, they get very, very excited about having a massive marketing budget. They don't think they're going to waste it. Like you would, if you bought IT, you don't say, I'm going to go and buy a load of rubbish IT, or I'm going to invest money in HR and do it really badly. Of course, you're going to do it the best you possibly can to your ability. But, big growth rarely comes from underfunding. And sometimes there's that realistic piece of, you meet clients that are growing at 7% year on year on year, and spend 100 grand on marketing. And now they want to grow at 34% year on year, and are going to add 10 grand to their marketing budget. It's like, that's just not going to work. That's not, unfortunately, how the world works, if you know what I mean. I'm going to put 10 grand in, I'm going to get 2 million out. That's just not. So trying to have a really good marketing budget will pay off, like anything else. And I appreciate that, it depends on where you are right now, but trying to have a small marketing budget and trying to cut your marketing budget is not a great idea. And so basically, the more you put in, the more you get out. It's obvious, really. And of course, the trick is to make sure you spend every single penny as wisely as possible. But what you wouldn't, imagine if I was your marketer and I came back to you and said, I've saved you 25% of the budget, but I only did 75% of the work. So that's not the plan. The plan is you get out there and do all of it. We've agreed what you need to do. Go and do every single thing I told you to do. And this is about joining things up. This is an organisational piece, actually. Is that, I'm old enough to know that, I remember when businesses were kind of admin and HR and finance and IT and marketing, quite siloed. And organisations now are far more holistic, and they all work together because ultimately the customer touch point comes in everywhere. The product's got to be good because the customer's going to be touching the product, but actually the people that answer the phone, the delivery drivers, everybody that's involved with this is a touch point on that service delivery for a customer. So this one I know is normally true. Most people underinvest in their marketing. So just wanted to put that in there, which kind of leads into this a little bit. Steve and I were recently talking about sort of crisis planning. You know, that what's the saying now? Change is the new constant. Or, I mean, I grew up in an era where there wasn't a lot of change. We used to do a pestle analysis, you know, political, economic, or broadly, I used to go in and say nothing much is going to change in the next 3 years. Now, every flipping 3 months, something radical rocks. I mean, we know, don't they? They're not tiny changes. People are waiting. I remember when budgets used to happen and no one cared. Now we're all just waiting. I mean, what's going to happen today? What's going to happen? It's coming. There's more and more and more change. Nobody can see it going away. So this bit, I think, is quite nice about trying to do it in the middle of things is really hard. And actually, if I wanted to make a point about this bit here, what you can do is, I appreciate that, you know, business changes and things have to be cut. And I think one of the problems with marketing is it's very easy to cut marketing, unlike your electricity bill. You know, so it's one of those things that gets hit quick, but it will make a difference. It will hurt. And actually, if you can plan a little bit beforehand, sometimes I've got one client, for example, that we sell stuff at Christmas. So it's really, really seasonal. And I won't bore you with it, but ultimately, there are a couple of factors that really depend on how well that season is going by about November. But what we've allocated is about 75% of the business, the budget is guaranteed, and 25% can come as long as certain factors are hit. But it does mean that year on year on year, that 75% is solid. And that, I don't know if it's a good analogy, but you know, if you've been given enough money to build a 2-story house, and somebody comes along at the 3/4 of the way through and says there's no more money, it's not like you've got 3/4 of a house. You just have something that's not fit for purpose. It will not work. And marketers have that same dilemma. Is you just need to know that this is solid, this is going to happen. It'd be much better to say, here's 75% of the budget and I built a bungalow, but it works and it's functional and it does what it's supposed to do. I might be using too many analogies. Yeah, there's loads of research about cutting marketing budget is not good for you. Everybody knows it. One of the beauties of, you know, my job now is having worked for big global companies. They know all of this. They're fully aware of what goes on. There's so much research. They talk about going dark as one of those things that happens when things are tough and you just kind of hunker down. I mean, it's a bit like self-sabotaging your own business. You have to be really, really careful about what you do. And the really interesting research is about when recovery comes, because recovery does always come. This is that seasonality of winters and summers in business. They just happen to be closer together now, but it always comes back. And if you've completely dropped your marketing, your recovery is so much slower for years and less profitability. So this is one of those things that's worth thinking about and planning in. If you think your business is susceptible to some of this change that's going on, much better to consider it and work on that, you know, when things are a bit calmer before they hit, so that you know what you're going to cut before it happens. And sometimes you go, that's fine, that's sacred, that's safe, that's not a problem. And sometimes it's actually, what if? And much better then if the whole organization says, okay, that's definitely happening, this may not. This is something I've seen in really good, effective businesses that are working very, very well. This is about everybody taking responsibility for growth. Everybody in the organization. I've got one client that has turned their reception team into the first impressions team. That's a really, really interesting big shift. You know, I was working with a client who said they gave exceptional service. I sat in the reception, they didn't even answer the telephone. So I'm not talking exceptional service, I'm talking any service. But when you start, if you treat people like adults, they act like adults. You treat people like kids, they act like kids. And this is one of those factors where, as an organisation, as a business, we're all responsible for growth, for this business working. Just because if you answer the phone, if you hoover up, if you do whatever, we're all playing a part. And I'm finding that in lots of businesses is a good factor. And so I suppose the question to ask yourselves is how many people feel that way in the business, that they are responsible, that they play a part. So, I think this bit, so my analogy with this, I try not to use too many. This is a bit like going to the gym. And this is one of those factors that I think in most businesses we all lack. I know that if I went to the gym 4 times a week for the next 3 years, I will be much more buff than I am right now. I know it. It's fundamentally built in. I know how it works. But having the discipline to do it is really difficult. And it depends on how important. And do you know, the bit that I really want to challenge you all on actually is, do you really want growth? Because if I really wanted to be that fit, I would be going to the gym more. But obviously I've decided that it's not as important as I thought it might be. And this is a really, really big piece about dropping this. Like, do you really want growth? Which goes all the way back to the beginning of, where am I now? Where do I want to go? Do I really want that? Or will it be kind of nice to have if I get there? Once you really want it and you know you really want to get there, then you start making all of these decisions that will help you get there. And so this is really about discipline and commitment. I think that's one of the secrets of what we're talking about now. Most of us know what we're trying to do, broadly. But having the discipline and the commitment is really important. And there's this other bit here about good ideas rarely fail on merit. It's only because we stop doing them. Going to the gym is a good idea. Eating healthily is a good idea. Lots of things are a great idea. We know the fact, but actually making them happen. So I knew a client once that had lots of filing cabinets, beautiful actually. They must have been expensively good, cool looking filing cabinets. We were sat there and one of the questions that when I first meet clients is, what's worked in the past? What's really good for growth? And one of them was, we used to call all these people in these filing cabinets, and that used to be really successful. And it was like, so what do we do now? They went, we've stopped doing it. And nobody in the business could remember when they stopped doing it or why they stopped doing it. Nobody. They just had. And one of my first initiatives was to restart that. We hired a telemarketing lady, and within 6 months, 10% of the contribution to the annual revenue of that business came from that filing cabinet, or those 6 filing cabinets. Just because we'd lost the discipline to just keep doing something that we knew worked really, really well. Because it was hard work. It took a bit of effort. It took a lot of effort, actually, to motivate, and it's that one of those jobs. So I think maybe this is, Steve and me and that kind of role is part of this job. It's a bit like being the personal trainer that turns up at your house every morning at 6 o'clock and says, right, we're going for a run or we're going to go to the gym. Sometimes that's part of what you need, and you need that in your business. Now, it might be you. You might be that person that says, do you know what, I get it, I buy it, I understand it, I want it, and someone's going to have to drive this thing through. And I'm taking that, and can you take that, and can you take that, and you're going to be responsible for them. And not in a finger-pointing, blame culture way, just in a kind of take responsibility. Your job's to get it done, because I know how important it is in the mix to get me from A to B. So yeah, this one is one of those ones about what ideas in your business have failed through drift, delay, or weak ownership. Because there will be great ideas that you've started and that you've done, but for whatever reason, you can't quite get it going. And those are the secrets. Those are those, most of the easy stuff to get done, all of your competitors will be doing as well. It's those tricky ones that are a bit harder to get through for whatever reason everybody else finds hard as well. So I'm there. So this is just a little bit of a summary slide. There's no really questions on this. But that clarity piece, I find really illuminating. The amount of times that, you know, I deliver strategy for organisations and it's, oh, I get it. We can stop arguing in the boardroom. We can stop doing this, we can stop doing that. We know where we are. We know where we're going. We all agree. We've signed off on that plan. So next time somebody suggests anything that's off that plan, I'm not interested for at least the next 3 years. The getting it done. So when I was young, I remember there used to be this argument about, is strategy more important than tactics, or tactics more important than strategy? And I genuinely believe you could have done either. You could have had an amazing strategy and poor execution, or a ropey strategy and brilliant execution, and you kind of did well as a business. And actually, I think when you start up as a business, it's a bit like that. It's so competitive now. There are so many factors where you have to be really good at what you do, that you've got to get both right. You've got to have a flipping good plan, and you've got to execute it really well. And this bit, you know, when I talk about those secrets, is I think that accountability piece, that you could swap that for responsibility. Absolutely massive. Especially when you know that they're fundamental pieces. You know, do I need to hoover up every day? Maybe not. But do I need to make sure I'm reaching out to my clients or my prospects every day? Absolutely. That's got to happen. Day in, day out, we are going to reach out to prospects. So last 3 questions that I think you'll probably go through with Steve as well, and I hope motivate you a little bit about, are we clear? Are we backing it? Which I personally see weaknesses in a lot, and I'm not suggesting it is everybody here, but, and sometimes that is about resource. It's not just money, it's, you know, have we, you know, invested in it? Are the right people involved in it? Do we engage in it? Sometimes it's like you have to have a meeting every 2 weeks, a really formal meeting every 2 weeks to drive forward business growth. Are we doing that, for example? And making it happen. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, thank you, mate. Thank you. There is literally so much to unpack on that. Why are we here? Anyone? This is the Ferris Bueller moment. Why are we here?
You told us to come.
To grow what?
Our business.
But why are we here today?
To plan the next 90 days.
To...
Plan the next 90 days.
So if we're here to plan the next 90 days and we listen to what Paul said there, I mean, again, literally every slide that he talked about, there is an element of focus on that one. But there's a few that I'd bring up that I think are absolutely critical. And if any of you have questions in a moment, I'll give you the opportunity. Profit centres. Where are the profit centres in your business? And I know on many occasions, all of us had these conversations in terms of actually, what is it about the business that makes money? And where do I make money? I love the part, and what's really cool today is there are more teams in the room than we've had for quite some time. So the whole premise of everybody in the business is responsible for marketing. Everybody is a salesperson is absolutely critical. Because whatever it is you do in terms of that engagement, whether it is a sales qualified lead, marketing qualified lead, whether it's a prospect, a customer, you are having an impact on the conversion. You're having an impact on the growth of the business. So what does that look like? And again, this whole premise of accountability in terms of, what is it that we absolutely want to be held accountable to? And what would that be, by the way? Anyone? It'd be a number. Whatever way you want to look at it, at the end of the 90 days is going to be a set of zeros that we want to add to the revenue. Yes or yes? Or no? Anybody a no? No. Nobody's a no. Good. So we're on the same page there. So we're looking for revenue growth. Agreed? Yes. Within that, what are the metrics that we can measure? So what is it that we can actually measure along the way that's going to have an empirical impact that has a contribution to that number at the end of the 90 days? See, the really interesting point when we do this reflection piece, and I'll do a little bit on that in a little while, with regards to how have we done over the last 90 days, is remember what I talked about? And I know some of you won't be familiar with it just yet. I talk about the gap and the gain. So what have been the gains? Where have we actually shown and demonstrated growth over the last 90 days in terms of moving us in the right direction? Really valuable stuff. Final piece that I just want to pick up, and again, I think you'll all agree that was really insightful, and Paul's background, where he comes from in that strategic sense. Today is about strategy. You're going to write your objective. Your objective is a strategy for growth over the next 90 days. The weeks in between are where the actual rubber hits the road, is where you're going to put the tactics on. It's where actually that's the activities that we want to achieve. They are the growth numbers that we want to achieve. So really, really dive into that as we go into the planning later on. You know me, I love my own voice. Any questions from anybody? Please, someone.
Can I just add something, actually, just made me think about, because I didn't want to lecture and I didn't want to teach and I didn't want to be that person, but I really wanted to impart stuff that I hope motivated a little bit or maybe spark something. But the benefit of when this all, I mean, you're already doing it, but it's a bit like being match fit for anything in life. Do you know what I mean? The closer you get to being ready to run that marathon or to do whatever you're going to do, getting all of this right is brilliant. Once you've felt it, you've been it. We talk about the sweet spot in marketing, where everything's perfect, where just the right amount of customers are coming in and just the amount of expenditure and just the amount of right resources and delivery, and you go through it. You very rarely stay in it for very long. But as we get all these things right, the business just gets better. I kind of take I look at the sort of the teams I work with, and then I look at them again 2 years later. After following this really basic disciplined stuff, they're just sharper, but they're happier. I genuinely mean that. I don't mean that it's like, because it's hard work. Doing this is just a grind. It's bloody flipping heck. I'd rather go to the beach, but the benefits are really, really good. What you end up with is just a sharper team that's happier, more motivated, and better. And then the really exciting thing is you're better than your competitors. And you're starting to, be annoying to them and win their business and do the things that you wanted to do and the personal pride. And then, of course, there's also exits and things that you want to talk about. But there are some really good points. I think it's worth it.
Brilliant. Thanks for Paul.
Thank you.